morning, everybody. I know that everyone is tired, but I'm gonna make it short. Okay, so I'm Hala. I'm a MediPIET graduate of cohort 1. I'll be talking to you today about the implementation of the environmental surveillance system for poliovirus detection in Lebanon. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, there are three main pillars for the eradication of polio, mainly immunization, enhancing both routine and conducting campaigns, and surveillance systems, whether acute flaccid paralysis surveillance system or environmental surveillance system, and last but not least, the lab containment and certification for countries. And for the scope of this presentation, we'll be targeting the environmental surveillance system. So what is environmental surveillance? It is nothing but the testing of sewage samples searching for the presence of poliovirus. So what is the rationale behind environmental surveillance? As most of you know, the mode of transmission of polio is fecal-oral. Hence, we're going to go and search for the virus in the sewage samples. And as depicted in the polio clinical spectrum, that majority of the cases are asymptomatic, meaning that the virus can be silently circulating within the community without being picked up by AFP surveillance system. So a brief history about polio in Lebanon. The last two indigenous polio cases in Lebanon were in 1994. We had two imported polio cases, the first in 1995 and the latest one was in 2003. And Lebanon has been polio-free ever since 2002. Now, as most of you are hearing in the news, polio is back to the Middle East region. In 2013 and 2014, Syria has witnessed wild poliovirus outbreak with 36 confirmed wild poliovirus cases. Lebanon is at high risk of poliovirus importation due first to the geographic proximity to Syria and due to the huge Syrian influx due to the current war situation in Syria. So as per the result of the WHO recommendations, WHO has recommended countries who are at risk to implement the environmental surveillance system in their country, and Lebanon has done so in 2016, where we started out with 2 sites. In 2017, again, with the current circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus outbreak in Syria, we have tried to expand the system and include a 3rd site. So the main objective of the environmental surveillance system here is to detect the presence, if any, of any wild poliovirus or vaccine-derived poliovirus, ensure the absence of poliovirus circulation in the country, and hence maintain the polio-free status for Lebanon. So the criteria for selecting the provinces or the sites were first to do some risk assessment based on the indicators of the AFP surveillance data as well as the immunity profile of the provinces, and then identify out of those provinces that were considered as at high risk if there were any well-established sewage treatment plants with no industrial drainage, and the sewage treatment plant should cover at least 200,000 population, capturing as well high-risk groups within their catchment area. So 1 liter of sewage sample per month per site is being collected. The environmental surveillance specimens are shipped abroad following the IATA guidelines using category B packaging to the WHO referral lab for testing, and our referral lab is the National Jordan Polio Lab that performs the virological isolation. As a result, and as intensive discussion with WHO, we have came to select three sites, Bekaa, Mount Lebanon, and North. And as mentioned before, two sites were initially selected in 2016, and then the North province was added in 2017, and all three provinces have a well-established treatment, sewage treatment plants, and they include high-risk groups as well. To date, neither wild poliovirus nor vaccine-derived virus has been isolated from the environmental surveillance specimens in Lebanon. And as you see in the table here, that the majority of the results are non-polio enteroviruses, followed by Sabine-like viruses, whether 1, 3, or both, and around 12% were negative. The ES specimen results are sent from the Jordan National Polio Lab via email to the Ministry of Public Health. And then in return, the Ministry of Public Health will share the results of the ES specimens via the AFP weekly surveillance bulletin. This bulletin is uploaded on the Ministry of Public Health website, and the bulletin is as well communicated and shared with partners and Ministry of Public Health teams and professionals. So as a conclusion, the ES system in Lebanon continues to ensure the absence of poliovirus circulation, hence maintaining the polio-free status of the country. And out of the 25 environmental surveillance samples collected from October 2016 till October 2017, 48% of the specimens resulted in non-polio enteroviruses, 40% were Sabine-like, and only 12% were negative, highlighting by that the proper reverse cold chain process. And last, until the Syrian circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus outbreak comes to an end, and until polio is eradicated globally, the risk of poliovirus importation remains in place, necessitating the sustainability and expansion of the ES system in Lebanon. As for our challenges, the weather conditions hindering the ES specimen collection, this was mainly in November 2016 in Bekaa region, where it was snowy and we couldn't collect the environmental specimen. As for Lebanon, we do not have a national referral lab, so the lab testing is outsourced. And this has faced us with several problems at the airport customs, whereby losing some specimens. And since the system is funded by WHO, any disruption in this funding would eventually disrupt the entire system. So as future plan, and as per the recommendation of the WHO, Lebanon will further expand the ES system and include more sites as per risk assessment results and on the light of the persistent poliovirus circulation in the region. So there is a need to conduct trainings for peripheral teams on ES specimen collection and enhance the capacity building. And there's a need to explore, and this is what's actually being done and discussed, the possibility of establishing a unit for virological isolation testing at one of the governmental hospitals in Lebanon. Last but not least, I would like to thank your attention and all those who had contributed in the establishment of the system. And thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Hala. That was interesting. No, laugh. Wait, Senate. Thank you. It was an interesting, and actually thank you for keeping it short also. And I would like to open the question to Senate first.
Very nice presentation. I would like to know what's the prevalence of open air defecation there. Like it looks like the environmental samples are collected only from the sewage. Suppose there is open air defecation in some specific populations. Are there any ways to handle that?
If I heard the question correct, open defecation, you mean?
Open defecation, yeah. Like is there any possibility?
We do not have open defecation in Lebanon, so I don't think we have this problem. It's we have
even the kids they don't. You don't have any high risk population.
There's a bathroom that is linked to either the sewage system or the septic tanks, but actually, just in the environment, I don't recall, or not up to my knowledge. But as a majority, no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thank you for the beautiful, very clear presentation from beginning to the end. I really enjoyed it. So the question that I have is not regarding the surveillance system itself and the presentation itself, but I would like to know the feasibility and the sustainability of the surveillance system. Is it being financed at the moment by WHO? Is there any kind of incentives coming from their side? Are you able to maintain the sustainability of the system in the years to come? That's the first question. And the second one is just regarding the immunization schedule in your country regarding IPV and OPV.
Okay. For the first part of the question, if there's the plan for sustainability, actually yes, as long as the virus is in the region, we're maintaining the system. As I mentioned, that the system is funded by WHO for the material, for the testing, and for the shipment. However, if anything would happen for the system, for sure the Ministry of Public Health has a budget for sustaining the system. This is for the first question. For the second, for the immunization campaigns, actually as a response for the outbreak in 2013-2014, there was a regional response in the area where all the countries of the regions have conducted several immunization campaigns. Recently now, to my knowledge, they're doing mop-up campaigns and supplementary immunization campaigns for those areas that are of immunity gaps. Actually, they're using the IPV for routine and OPV bivalent as campaigns. Schedule? It should be 2 months, 4, 6 months, and then at 1.5 years. This is the plus one IPV and the rest are OPVs, because we had several VAP cases, vaccine-associated paralytic poliomyelitis, so we introduced the IPV as a first dose to protect as an individual immunity, then all the rest of the doses will be OPV.
Yes, Carmen?
Yes, thank you very much indeed for the presentation. Could you kindly provide some specification on the risk assessment that is giving you the
Yes.
information for
exactly.
the selection?
Thank you for your question. The risk assessment is mainly the indicators of the AFP surveillance system, as well as the immunity gap, whether any AFP child, having less than 3 doses of OPV, IPV, or any 0 dose. So, as well as the coverage, immunity coverage from API program. So all those together were discussed thoroughly in a one-on-one table with WHO, regional, local offices, and Ministry of Public Health. And at the end, we identified the 3 major top high-risk provinces, which are Bekaa region, Mount Lebanon, and then the north, as well as the availability of the high-risk groups, the Syrian population within those provinces. This is it.
Oh, it was the same question? Okay. Actually, I would like to ask you about, because you said you took the samples from areas that have over 200,000 populations.
Yes.
But what about the refugee settlements areas? You usually, I mean, do you have these kind of numbers?
Yes.
Like these high numbers in the settlements? Or because usually, I mean,
Yeah.
coming from also a country that hosts refugees, usually it's less
Exactly.
people? Yeah.
So actually the Syrian population are, the majority of them are integrated within the Lebanese society. However, there is a good number of ITSs, and the Bekaa region, mainly the West Bekaa district, has a good number of ITSs. So that's why it was included as a site in order to cover all those high-risk population in the area.
Thank you, Hala. Thank you. So.